Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather and I'm here to talk to you about all of the books that I acquired in the month of March. The first book you will have already seen because I bought it for a buddy read, and that is Morris by E.M. Forster, or Maurice. Depends which side of the Atlantic you're on, I think. This is a novel that was written in 1914. I have now reconsulted the back of the book. But E.M. Forster wasn't able to publish it until 1970, as it is the story of Maurice, a young man in Edwardian England, who is coming to terms with his sexuality, specifically the fact that he is attracted to other men. And I love the way E.M. Forster writes. I loved A Passage to India, and I loved A Room with a View, so I'm really looking forward to reading this book, and based on the couple of pages that I've glimpsed while flicking through it, I think I'm really going to love it. Next is a book with a rather unusual origin story. I really needed some pick-me-ups in February. It was not the month that I was hoping to have at all, and so I rediscovered my Bollywood playlists, and they really picked me up and it was really wonderful. But I discovered a song from the film Devdas, which is full of Bollywood legends like Shah Rukh Khan and Aishwarya Rai, but it's very hard to tell what the film is about from that song, Dola Re Dola, which I'll link down below because the choreography is incredible. But in doing some research about the film, I discovered it was also an Indian classic novel. And so I hunted it down on ABE Books because it is very rare to find an English translation these days. And I managed to find this lovely copy. So Devdas is by Sarat Chandra Chattopadhyay. I hope I said that correctly. And it was originally written in Bengali in 1917. Bangladesh was still part of India at the time, which is why I referred to it as an Indian classic, even though they did separate many years later. And this is the story of a young boy, Devdas, and his star-crossed relationship with Paro, which never works out for a variety of reasons, and so it follows his steady decline in the wake of being denied his one true love. And I can't wait to read it. I have never read an Asian classic before that I can recall, so I'm very excited to read this one. And then hopefully I will also be able to watch the film, which is available on Amazon Prime here in the US. I'm not sure about in other countries though. My next book that I'm absolutely thrilled about is The Artful Dickens by John Mullen. How can I tilt it so that you can read it better? Aha, perhaps like that. And I adore John Mullen as a literary scholar. I love his work. I love listening to him speak. Everything he does is wonderful. And this is his definitive work on Dickens and the techniques that Dickens uses, in a variety of circumstances. I really don't need to know any more than that. Next is a book that was very kindly given to me by my friend Jonathan while I was quarantined again, in the hopes that it would make that quarantine slightly more bearable. I was fine, but I was exposed at work earlier this month, so I had to quarantine just in case. And so he thought this book would ease my fear and my frustration, and I didn't read it yet, but I can't wait to. It's a new release called The Witch's Heart by Genevieve Gornichak. And it is a retelling of some of the Norse myths, specifically the life of Angrboda, who is often portrayed as a witch. She is also the mother of 3 of Loki's children, Hela, who is given dominion over the underworld, Fenrir the werewolf, and I forget his name, but she's also the mother of that giant snake who will play a part in Ragnarok. And so we know all of this from the original Norse myths, but this retells that portion of those myths from her perspective. And being a huge Loki fan, as well as a fan of Norse mythology by Neil Gaiman, I cannot wait to read this. It's also being compared to Circe by Madeline Miller, which I also loved. Next, because overall February was kind of a dud of a month, I bought some books on sale to make myself feel better. And they were on such a sale. The first of those books is Frog Music by Emma Donoghue, which I know several of my friends read and enjoyed last year. So I'm looking forward to getting to it at some point. It tells the story of a young dancer in San Francisco in the late 1800s as she navigates a rather unusual relationship, a murder, and the smallpox epidemic and a heat wave. It sounds fascinating. I now have 3 or 4 of Emma Donoghue's historical fiction novels on my TBR, and I haven't read any of them yet. I have this one, I have Slammerkin, I have Life Mask, and I have The Wonder. Please let me know down below which one you think I should start with if you have read any of them, because quite honestly, I can't choose. I'm not leaning towards The Wonder as much, but if you've read any of the other 3, let me know which you recommend. Next, I bought the play Amadeus by Peter Schaefer. This tells the story of the life of Mozart through the eyes of the composer Antonio Salieri, who was his contemporary and, in this play, his rival. I loved the play. I saw the National Theatre's production when it was online this summer, and I saw the film. Both are wonderful, although they are quite different from each other. So I can't wait to read the original play, see if I get any insights from that, as well as it has an introduction from Sir Peter Hall. So how could I resist? Next, I found this compilation on sale of the great short works of Leo Tolstoy. So this has such works as The Death of Ivan Ilyich, The Cossacks, Alyosha the Pot, The Kreutzer Sonata, Haji Murad, etc. And I cannot wait to read some of them. I have been following the Dickens versus Tolstoy debate that Carolyn of Carolyn Marie Reads and Emma of the channel Emmy have been doing together. And that, plus having watched the original debate which inspired the two of them, has made me really want to get to some of Tolstoy's shorter works. I've read and enjoyed Anna Karenina and War and Peace, and I read How Much Land Does a Man Need and What Men Live By over Christmas. So I am thrilled to get to some of these in the future. Next, I found a nonfiction book on sale that I have been wanting since the summer, and that is Austen Years by Rachel Cohen. This tells the story of Rachel's life, a particular period in her life when she read only Austen. And that was mainly because she was pregnant with her daughter and her father had recently passed. And she reflects on what reading Austen during those conflicting periods of her life did for her. And as a huge Austen fan myself, how could I say no? Another nonfiction book that I couldn't resist was Handel in London, The Making of a Genius by Jane Glover. And I don't know much about it other than it follows the journey of the composer George Friedrich Handel in London. And I have been growing to love Handel's music more and more recently, so I can't wait to find out more about him as a person. And finally, one book was a surprise. It was a belated Christmas gift from some of my cousins, and that was Peanuts Cross Stitch, which does exactly what it says on the tin. It gives you patterns for some delightful embroidery projects like this one, or indeed this cross stitch of Sally on the back. And they look just delightful. I have loved Peanuts ever since I was a child, and I have been loving cross stitch recently. So, and I hadn't talked to these cousins about that love yet, so I don't know how they knew, but it is perfect. Thank you so much. So there you have it. Those are some books that I've acquired recently. Let me know down below if you have read and loved any of them. Again, don't tell me if you didn't, because I'm very excited for them. Or if you are also intrigued by any of them and you think I should move them further up my TBR. What have you purchased recently? Have you successfully ever done a book buying ban? Because I keep telling myself I'm going to, and clearly it never works. Let me know anything and everything in the comments down below, and until next time, be safe, be well, and happy reading. Bye everyone.